Hey, this is Daniel Grove. In this video, I'm going to show you my workflow in about 7 easy steps. Sometimes it's just 5 steps. It really depends on what the job is and what it calls for. The reason I'm making this video is 2 reasons. First of all, the subject of workflow came up from a recent post I did about an easy way to get my finished images from my computer to my phone so that I could do a multi-photo post in Instagram. And a lot of people got a little confused about my process. They thought it was really complicated and crazy and unnecessary, and it's actually really simple. And that got me thinking about my larger workflow from really beginning to finish as far as the post-processing part of my job goes. So I thought I'd make a new video. And also the second reason is that I do have a workflow video up at pretty old on my YouTube right now, and some of the process may be a little outdated with the culling and the software and things like that. So I figured, hey, why not make a new one? Try to make it clean and simple and short, hopefully. I hope it benefits some of you out there. If you have any questions, let me know. You can write it in the comments or email me and let me know what you think about my process. And if you have one that you think works better, let me know. All right, so the very first thing I do when I get home from a photo shoot or when I'm ready to start, my post-processing process is step 1 is I import and I use Lightroom. I use Lightroom Classic, not the CC version. I do not like CC, but I love the Classic version because it's got all the tools that I need and I know how to use it. So I import with Lightroom, and when I import, I use the convert to DNG or copy as DNG option, which is on the top center of Lightroom's import screen. And DNG is really cool. It's actually Adobe's take on raw image format, and you can convert any raw image format to DNG, such as your NIK Nikon RAWs or your CR2 Canon RAWs or whatever. I think it's AZR, which is Sony's. You can convert any of those to DNG. You do not lose any image quality, dynamic range, or anything like that. This is not a lossy format. This is a lossless format, but there are some things changed where it is actually a little bit smaller in size. So this image right here, I actually shot yesterday as of this recording. And let's talk about the file sizes involved here. So the original CR2 from my camera shot on a Canon 6D is 22.1 megabytes. So that's the original RAW. When Lightroom converted it into a DNG, it's now 19.7 megabytes. Okay, so it's a little bit smaller. It's about almost 2 to 3 megabytes smaller. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that. These image sizes vary. It's not much, but hey, when you do a wedding with 2,000 photos, it adds up, and you're actually saving a decent amount of space in the end. And then the final JPEG version, full size, is 12 megabytes. And again, that varies as well, anywhere from 6 megabytes up to 15, 16 megabytes if there's a lot of detail in it. So yeah, you're saving a little bit of space when you use DNG. Another thing I like about DNG is that the DNG format actually saves all of your Lightroom edits inside of itself. Whereas the original RAW file, such as a CR2 or a NIK from Nikon cameras, you actually have to have a sidecar file, which is associated with the edits you do in Lightroom. And the information you edit in a develop module of Lightroom is saved into that sidecar file as well as into the Lightroom library. So it's not just in the sidecar file. But I like the DNG because if I lose my Lightroom library or if it gets corrupted, I have all my DNG for the past like 5-6 years. And guess what? They all have the develop settings in them. So that's really nice. You could also send it to somebody else for editing or review, and they'll have all the sliders and editing that you did in Lightroom. Other thing that I do in the import screen is I rename my file to be relevant and readable. I don't like a bunch of code words and numbers. I'll actually name it. So for this example here, my photo shoot I did recently was Sarah, and she was dressed up as an elf, so I named it Elvin Sarah. And I may put a year on the end, like I do for the folder number, but I try to name my image files as short as possible, but at the same time as descriptive as possible. And in the Lightroom feature, I do custom name plus sequence. So that means it's going to add up these number sequences for each file number, image 1, image 2, image 3, all the way up to whatever. So that's nice and easy to read. If I just find this file floating around, I know exactly what it is. Last thing on the import screen is I use a subfolder, which I will name what the photo shoot is. So in this case, Elvin Sarah 2019. So all the raw files will go into that subfolder, and that subfolder is inside of a larger photography folder. And that photography folder contains all of my photo shoots. All right, my next step is the culling process. This is a little bit time consuming, but it can be kind of fun if you know how to do it well. And again, I'm using Lightroom Classic for this stage. The first pass I do when I go through all my photos is I use the X key on my keyboard to reject flag those photos that I don't like. The blurry ones, the overexposed ones that can't be saved, or the underexposed ones that can't be saved. And thankfully these days I'm getting less and less of those as I get better with photography. But I'll X flag the bad ones. I will rate the rest of them 3 through 5 stars. Why not 1 and 2? Because I don't care about 1 and 2. I don't want to have to think of 5 levels of my photos. I've narrowed it down to 3. And honestly, sometimes I just use 2 levels of starring. But 3 to 5 does it for me. The first pass is my 3-star photos. Those are all the good ones that are decent enough to keep. Anything that's not a 3 will be deleted. Then I go back through the 3-star photos, and then I 4-star the best one of that group. So those are the better ones. And then I'll go through the 4-star photos only, and I'll 5-star the best of those. So the 5-star photos are the winners in the very end. If it's a normal portrait session, there might be anywhere from 20 to 35 of these, the best of the best. And those are the ones I edit. Do not edit your bad photos. Do not edit every photo from your photo shoot. Please, for the sake of time, don't do that to yourself. You're not getting paid enough to do that anyway. Let's be honest. So pick the winners and edit those, and only deliver the best ones. It's better to have 10 amazing mind-blowing photos than 100 okay photos that your client has to sift through and try to find the best ones that they like, and then they forget which one. It's just a mess. So I focus on quality over quantity. Much later in this whole process of my workflow is I will delete the rejected photos, and I may even delete the photos that never got starred at all. So the 0-starred photos, which were not good enough to be 3-starred, but they weren't bad enough to get rejected in the first pass. Those I've got to go because they're not good enough to be a 3-star. I don't need them. And that's just using up space that, I'm not getting paid for. So they got to go. Now, culling with stars applies to a portrait session only. If I'm doing a wedding or an event, it's different. I just, reject the bad ones and delete those, and then I'll keep all the rest of the photos that are good enough to be presented and deliver as a paid product. Those are the ones I'll edit from that point. I don't actually star photos from an event or a wedding. I just, edit all of them, and I get rid of the bad ones, and it's nice and simple. That's why I said there's a few less steps if it's a wedding or an event. All right, so after I'm done culling the photos, if I cull them at all, I move on to the basic editing stage, which again is with Lightroom Classic. Now, in this stage, I use a develop module. I do all the basic edits. I call them photographic edits because they apply to the photographic elements of my photo. What are photographic elements? All the basic stuff like exposure, color temperature, contrast, shadows, highlights, all the basic stuff. To some of you that may be advanced, but you'll get there. Don't worry. So I try to get my photo looking presentable, professional, just all around well balanced as far as dynamic range and exposure and color, clarity. I try to get all the skin tones looking as best as I possibly can in Lightroom. And once I'm done with my Lightroom stage, here's where I'm done with Lightroom after this point. I'll actually export as JPEGs. And this is where a lot of people don't agree with me or don't understand, and I don't understand how they don't understand. Apparently, a lot of people are fans of the round tripping, which is when you right-click on a raw file in your Lightroom library and you choose Edit In and Photoshop. And Photoshop pops up with that raw image, which is awesome. It's a really great feature. Don't get me wrong. I've used it maybe once or twice. So what you can do from that point is you can actually use all the powerful tools of Photoshop on your raw image in Photoshop. And then when you're done, you close it and you click yes, save changes, and you go right back into Lightroom with those changes applied to your raw file. And that's awesome, right? I don't know. That's not my style. When I'm done with Lightroom, I'm done, and I don't want to come back to it. And one of the biggest downsides to this method of round tripping is that it creates a totally unnecessary, well, in my opinion, unnecessary and gigantically large TIF or TIFF image file. So a TIFF file is a really high quality, lossless image format that contains a lot of interesting stuff. It can have really high quality images in it. I think it can support layers and transparency. It's like the top dog as far as image formats are concerned, but it's really big and I just don't need that. So like I said earlier, the raw file of this image right here is 22.1 megabytes. Guess what the TIFF file is? It's 114 megabytes. That's huge. And why? All I did to this raw image when I went into Photoshop and then I saved the changes as, I literally used the heal tool and I erased a few pieces of trash. I didn't add any layers. I didn't do any, masking or adjustment layers. I just did a few cleanups on literally 3 rocks and some pieces of trash on the floor. And then I closed it, came back to Lightroom, and I looked at that TIFF file that it created, 114 megabytes. That's outlandish. And I don't like that. I don't want a 100 plus megabyte for every 20 megabyte file I already have from the raw. That's just crazy. And also, in case you're curious, I opened up this DNG raw of this image, and which again, Lightroom made the DNG. I opened it in Photoshop. I saved it as a PSD. The PSD itself, without any changes done, is 54 megabytes. So yeah, it adds up pretty quick. So only save a Photoshop file if you know you're going to come back to that image and really tweak it and fix layers and stuff like that. Otherwise, stick with your DNGs, stick with your JPEGs, and you should be fine. So there you have it. That's why I don't do round tripping to Photoshop and back to Lightroom. Once I'm done with Lightroom, I'm done. I don't need to go back and forth. Speaking of exporting, when I export my JPEGs, I again use the custom name plus image sequence. So I would name it pretty much the same thing, Elvin Sarah, like the previous example, and then it'll add the numbers on the end. And I put these into a finished folder. I call it finished because I know, hey, these are the RAWs that have been edited in Lightroom and or Photoshop, and they're either about to be finished or they are finished, depending on what I'm doing to the images. So that takes us to the next step, which is finishing the edits. So this last step of the editing is done in Photoshop. So I use it on about maybe 75% of my photo shoots, sometimes 50. It really, again, it depends on what it is. So I will open up Photoshop and I will open up each of those JPEGs that Lightroom made for me in the finished folder, and I'll edit those. This might include retouching or removing some trash, like I said earlier. It might include, erasing some stray hairs, or if it's a cosplay or a themed photo, I might do a bunch of special effects like adding fog or, lightsaber blades or whatever. The stuff that I can't do in Lightroom, I'll do in Photoshop. And of course, if it's a composite, pretty much have no choice. You have to do it in Photoshop because Lightroom is great, but it can't do layers or anything like that. So I'll do my compositing and my fancy schmancy stuff that I'm known for in Photoshop. And when I'm done with that, guess what? I'm actually done with it. I don't come back. So when I'm done editing those photos, I'll close the image and I'll say, yes, save changes to, and I make sure it saves as a JPEG on top of the file that was opened originally. So I'm basically just overriding what was there with the new finished Photoshop edited version. I'm pretty much done at this point with the photo editing itself. All right, next step. So this step I do with a little freeware program called OrphanView, which has this really interesting icon. Honestly, I think it was drawn by a kid. Maybe, I don't know. But this program is really cool. It's very simple. When you open it, hit the letter B and you'll be in the batch mode, and you can just do all kinds of amazing batch changes to literally thousands, infinite number of photos with a few clicks of your mouse, way faster than Photoshop can do it. I know Photoshop can do some batch editing, Lightroom can do batch editing, but with my workflow, because I'm done with Photoshop, I can't be back in Lightroom at this point, and I don't really want to be either. So all I have to say, OrphanView is perfect for my use right now. So I load all my files into there that need to be resized. I tell it to put it into a web folder, and it's going to resize those and not do any other changes to them. And bada boom, it's super fast and easy. And I don't always do this, but I am doing this more often for a few different reasons. So what this means is I'm shrinking the resolution of my files, rather a copy of those files, to a much smaller size, which is perfect for Facebook uploads and Instagram uploads. You can send quite a few of these images in a single email because they're so small. And also when I do deliver digitals now, this is something new I'm doing as of last year, is I'm not giving my clients a full-size image anymore. They don't need a full-size image because what are they going to do? They're going to post it online. If they want prints, they have to order those through me. So they really don't need a 12 megabyte image. It's just unnecessary, and it's going to take forever for them to upload to social media, and me as well. So the smaller size image is nice to have a copy of because it uploads so quickly. Again, you can put a bunch of them in an email, and they're perfectly sized for Facebook. So Facebook actually doesn't resize your image because guess what? It's already the right size. And that is the magical number, 2048 pixels on the longest edge of the photo. So when you resize your images to that, they'll be perfect for Facebook. And then once those are done, I'll open up, if I am applying a logo, again, this is not always, but if it's say like a free shoot or a cosplay convention, something like that, where I slap my logo on all the images, I'll open up those small JPEGs, the web-sized JPEGs in Photoshop, and I have a brush, a custom brush made with my logo right here. And I just hit B for brush and just bloop, paint it on the corner of each of my photos. It really doesn't take that long. And I don't like to use the export, presets that add the logo because I like to control where that logo is going to be. I actually have a method to where I put my logo, and it really depends on the image. So that's a one step that does take maybe a little bit of time, but it's really not even that much. Just using my custom brush in Photoshop and brushing my logo onto one of the corners of the image, close and save as, and I'm done with that part. All right, we're almost done with my workflow. Step 6 is the delivery. Yay, the clients rejoice. This is where I deliver my photos to my client. Now, there's two basic methods I'll use for this. The first and easiest way is for a portrait session where someone has paid me for digitals, or they've purchased their prints and they get the digital for free that accompanied that printed image. And I will send them a nice, pre-written template email, and that contains the attached images, which again are web-sized. They're very small. These web-sized images are anywhere from 200 to 400 kilobytes, which is like a quarter of a megabyte. Okay, very small in size, and they're decent. I mean, they're HD quality as far as like an HD video. They're that much quality, and that's all you need for phone, laptop viewing, and of course social media uploading, which is what they're going to do next. So I send those images to them in an email, and I'm done with that. If it's a wedding or an event, I will use Pass, which is an incredible image delivery service, which is not paying me to say this, but they should. I really like it, and I get unlimited storage. They keep the files online for 10 years. With the gallery that the client gets, they can, of course, download the photos to any device or computer. And lastly, they can order prints from the gallery, which is really nice. So Pass is awesome for image delivery. It's the competitor of Pixieset and SmugMug and all those other photo delivery sites out there, but I've just stuck with Pass over the years and I like it. So that's how I deliver the photos in the end. And then the very last step, which is more for me, is the social media posting, step 7. So I use later.com, which is really cool. It allows you to schedule social media posts way ahead of time. And when that time and date comes, it posts it for you automatically. You don't have to do anything. It's all automated and very nice. I don't have time to be on my computer at the peak hours every single day of the week to post, that photo that's going to get the most attention at 9 p.m. or 8:30 a.m. Like, I'm busy at those times. I got a family. I got stuff to do. So I use later.com to schedule my Instagram and my Facebook posts ahead of time. Now I'm using the free account, which gives you 30 posts per social media platform. So that's pretty much, one post a day. The only limitation I found is that it will only allow you with a free account to do a single photo post. You can't do video and you can't do a multi-photo post, which is okay. Most of my posts are single photos anyway, but I am trying to do more multi-photo posts because I feel like they're just better quality. There's more content there for the viewer to see. So for that, I found an interesting workaround. I actually use a free app. It's called Drivesync. It's actually a phone app on my Android. I don't think they have one for iPhone. So Drivesync, what it does is it will look at a specific folder that you tell it to look at in your Google Drive account, and it will automatically download those files to your phone to a specific folder. So I've got on my Google Drive cloud, right? On the cloud, I've got a social media folder. Now, Drivesync knows to look at that folder only. Whenever I plop a new photo in there, it automatically downloads it onto my phone's hard drive through the internet, of course, to my phone's social media folder. So the folders are pretty much identical to each other at all times. So when I've got, say, I want to do 8 or 10 photos in a multi-photo post, I grab them all on my laptop, I drag them into my Google Drive, and they upload in a matter of minutes. Then in a few more minutes, my phone is updated and has those image files without me having to do anything. It's all automatically synced and it's on my phone. And then I just open up Instagram, make a new post, and boom, got it. I got it done right there. So that's an interesting little free hack that I found to do multi-photo posts without having to pay for anything. And there you go. That's pretty much my workflow. Importing with Lightroom, deculling in Lightroom, then the basic edits in Lightroom. Then I'm done with that. I export as JPEG, and then I open those in Photoshop, and I do my more advanced edits, my retouching. Then I save those changes, and then I bring it into OrphanView for batch resizing, which makes copies, smaller copies for web use and delivery. Then I deliver those images through email or Pass. And then last but not least, I schedule my own posts for my various social media platforms. Well, I hope this video benefited you. If you have any questions or if I missed something, just let me know in the comments and I will gladly clarify or answer any of your questions the best I can. Well, thanks for watching and have a great one.